Hi, everyone. My name is Karina Muller, and we're here today, United Latinas Cafecito. I'm so excited with Lisseth Zouhbi. Um, and all excited about this really great conversation we're going to have today and having all of you join us. So I'm going to have Lisseth tell us a little bit about herself and how she got to United Latinas. And then we're going to have this great conversation around wellness and mental health for HR, and that HR employees need to remember that they're people too, and that they're responsible for their employees and they do all this amazing things for the employee and the company, but that they need to take care of themselves as well. So, Lisa, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thanks, Karina, for having me be here with you today and share a little bit about me and discuss such a great topic that I feel is important, especially being in the field of HR. I'm currently the Chief Human Resources Officer at Child Care Resource Center. It is a nonprofit here in Los Angeles. I've been here about 3 years. Prior to being in the nonprofit space, I worked in hospitality for about 25 years. Did operations, finance, and actually got into HR by accident in 2001. Was mentored by such a great individual and just fell in love with the discipline. And now, almost 25 years later, here I am, and was very excited to partner with United Latinas last year to be a co-author for Volume 4 that was released in March of this year. So, it's been a great journey and excited to be here today.
Thank you. That's amazing. So we're going to talk about in our little our prep conversation. We talked a little bit. We were trying to figure out what to talk about today and what around mental health awareness and wellness, and especially because of the month of May. And you brought up this great topic, which I really love, because HR is responsible for taking care of all the employees and deciding on benefits and compensation, and they go out and they negotiate all these things, but we forget that those people going out and negotiating and interacting between leadership and management and the employees is a human being in HR, right? And
Yes.
we forget that there are aspects to that of like, well, then how do they take care of themselves? And that they tend to forget to put themselves forward versus the employees.
Yes, and a lot of us that are in this field, one of the main reasons is because we're passionate about being a support to the organization and to the employees. And so we're constantly, at the forefront, helping out the employees or the leaders and, navigating a lot of the world impacts that have an impact on the workforce. Whether it was dealing through the COVID crisis, doing, most recently in LA, we had the LA wildfires. So at the forefront, those that work in HR, usually we're the last to take a step back and take care of ourselves because we're always looking for ways to support our teams to take care of their needs, whether it's something work related or personal. And so we're constantly navigating through these these opportunities with them. And sometimes, we forget to just take a step back and ask that question: How am I doing? What do I need, to be able to just support myself and also give myself some grace.
I love that. I love the word grace. Grace is such a beautiful word, right? Um, so how would you like let's take this step by step, right? In terms of like I always love to leave our listeners or the people participating with us today or that will listen to us afterwards with some practical tools and knowledge. But let's take it a step back. How do you think, Lisa, people begin to in HR begin to make themselves aware that they're even doing this, right? I think as part of HR is being a natural caregiver, right? You go,
Right.
as you said, you go into this field because you care about people, you care about taking care of people. So maybe you can help us understand a little bit of like what are the signs that we should notice about ourselves that maybe we're forgetting to take care of ourselves, or maybe we need to take a moment to pause or realize, wait, what am I doing for me? So, what do you think some of those signs are?
You know, it's different for everybody, but I think some of the key signs is when, there's times where you're feeling the sense of overwhelmment, and you just need to take a step back and think, okay, do I need to pause, um, take a break from what I'm focusing on? Maybe you just walked away from a very difficult conversation and you just need some space to breathe, right? Um, so I think it's identifying, sort of having that self-awareness. That's the most important thing, is being able to have that self-awareness, because each of us have different levels of how much we can tolerate, and sort of, the level of burnout that each of us can deal with. So, is it that fatigue? Is it, your own, health, where you're just constantly getting sick, or you're feeling those stress levels that, it's sort of preventing you from actually, thinking clearly or having those effective, conversations. So, those are some signs that I can speak about because I've dealt with, but I think it is different for everybody. And how you manage it also really depends on the individual. And one of the things that I personally have learned is, three key things have really helped me. One is, knowing when to, identify where you just need to pause, and it's okay. Do I need to reschedule a meeting? Because maybe, like I said, I just came out from a, difficult conversation, or had to deal with some other crisis management. Second is being able to surround yourself with, key individuals that can be sort of your sounding board. um, I've been able to progress in my career, and the higher I've gone up in roles, it gets lonelier, right? Because it
Yes.
comes with the level of responsibility. So, I've been able to surround myself with amazing individuals that, have been there for me and can talk things through. And, then there's that piece of sort of just health in general, whether it's going for a walk, just going out and getting some fresh air. Sometimes that's what you need to do. And, those are things that don't cost you anything, but can just sort of break that, lower the stress, give you some time to think clearly, and, or just talk it out, have a conversation with somebody. And, that's really helpful. And a lot of
Hmm.
what we do, we have to make decisions. And, the work environment, the level of intensity of things that the HR discipline is dealing with now, it can get very tough, right? And so having those strong partnerships is really important as well.
I love everything you just said. I think it's amazing. Um, but what I really love too is that sense of community, and finding, like-minded people, maybe that can support you outside of your organization. I think is a really interesting perspective, right? It's like sometimes we think, oh, as HR, benefits, wellness, we have to resolve everything for everyone, and sometimes, we need help resolving, or we need to be able to vent, but we can't do it internally. And so have resources, have a support, have a community outside. It's kind of like, you know therapists have therapists, right?
Yeah.
And so I love this, that like HR people should have HR people, right? That are, you can interchange ideas, or call up and say, "Hey, I'm going through this experience. What do you think?" I think that's a really great way to say, before I get to the point of being feeling burnt out or overwhelmed or exhausted, maybe I have a buddy or my community or my
Mhm.
friend that understands what I'm going through. And that's super important, that sense of collaboration, community, support. I love that.
Yes, that has been my go-to, honestly, my go-to strategy, right? And I call it sort of like my own internal board of directors, or my inner circle, right? And a lot of it has been these amazing relationships that I built throughout my career, people that I worked with and have become, great partners. Joining associations like United Latinas, I'm also in Latinas Rising Up in HR, and not only externally, but there's also opportunities for us within our teams to
Mm,
build that culture of troubleshooting together. And I do that a lot, and I'm really thankful. I have such an amazing team where we do a lot of that collaboration together. And it's like, okay, let's talk it through, right? And just that support within each other, where we're there for each other. We know sort of what, when we can take a step back, or it's like, you know what, I got this. You go and take a break or whatever. I got this. And so those are the things that really make a difference. And I always say, surround yourself with people that uplift you and that will help you, whether it's in time of crisis or just, cheering you on, helping you think through, give you some feedback. And that's what, from my perspective, that has helped me. And to me, that is finding that wellness piece to get me through some of those situations where I feel like I'm reaching a stage of burnout, or just, you know, um, trying to think straight, and getting that support.
yeah, that's so valuable. I also like to say that um, it's okay to say I need a moment, right?
Hmm.
I think the other natural tendency of a caregiver or a person in HR is to resolve and to handle everything instantly, and everything is immediate and everything has to be done right now. And I think sometimes it's hard for us to say, you know what, I hear you. I understand what you're saying, or I have time for you, and I want to talk about it, but I need a moment. I just
Hmm.
need to pause for a moment. I need to take a walk to the bathroom, or I need to just take a breath, and then we will continue the conversation. And I think emphasizing the importance of that is so valuable for especially people in the HR field, because we listen all day long, right? You listen to everybody all day long. You listen to leadership, you listen to management, you listen to employees, you listen to your colleagues, you listen to everybody, which is amazing and makes you incredibly talented in so many ways to do all of this, because you are good at listening. But sometimes you have to listen to yourself and not be embarrassed. Maybe embarrassed is too harsh a word, but not take that moment to say it's okay to say I need a moment.
Yeah, because when you do that, then you actually are able to become more effective, right? And so, it's pausing or asking for help, and it's okay. And to your point, you know, I think it goes back to that self-awareness, knowing what triggers you, knowing when you've reached that point, um, where you can say, you know what, I just need to step away from this for a moment, reflect on it, and come back. And that is critical. And I think that's what a lot of us in this field do, is we've learned to sort of navigate crisis after crisis, um, but it sort of also strengthens you, how much you're able to tolerate and deal with, right? But there will
Right.
be a point where you're like, okay, I just need to take a break. I need to step away from it, come back refreshed. And sometimes it's about clearing your thoughts, your emotions,
Yes.
reflecting, and then really being able to identify how are you going to get through X, Y, and Z. And it's sort of this adrenaline rush, right? And
Hmm.
again, everybody deals with stress in different ways. Um, but with being in the HR field, it becomes sort of critical that you are able to identify what, where, and when you can actually do this, right? that then you become a more effective HR practitioner.
I love that. And so if you're, let's take it a little, a step a little bit deeper, maybe. If you're like you're a seasoned professional, you've got this great career, but let's say you're a young Latina or a young woman coming up in the world of HR and are moving through the steps. What are some practical tools that you would give that woman, the up and coming younger you?
One is, I think, build your
Okay.
network and build these relationships of individuals that can be there to support you, to give you advice. I think that's more than anything for me that has been, fundamental. I think, we haven't really talked about this, but I think even the professional development is important because,
Hmm.
we never stop learning, and sometimes stress may be triggered um, because you may not feel confident or you're dealing with something new. And I think with your professional development, you focus on that. It also builds your resilience. And
Oh, I
so
love that.
that's another piece of advice that I would say is never stop learning, keep evolving, because it builds your resilience, your confidence, and having to navigate sometimes some difficult situations. Um, and finding ways, little tricks that can help you sort of lower that stress. And again, whether it's going for a walk, taking deep breaths, whatever works for you, or listening to music, or journaling. You know, um, Sometimes I need to. There's so many electronic devices now, and I'm kind of old fashioned where I prefer to handwrite. And that helps me sort of express my thoughts, put it down, and then go back and reflect on it. Um, and so those are just some advices that I would give someone. Actually, whether you're starting or but at any level.
Yeah, I was about to say, actually, your advice is so valuable, it doesn't matter, right? And I love this idea of resilience, right? Like the fact that, finding those simple tools, finding those simple things can help you be resilient throughout your career at any stage, even if you're a seasoned HR professional like yourself, or you're starting or you're in the middle, this idea of ever evolving, ever learning, ever paying attention to your professional development can support resiliency and can support stress. I love that combination. That's a really brilliant thought because we don't think about it in that way, right? Like we
Yeah,
don't think about, well, if I'm working on my professional development or if I'm working on myself, I'm going to be more resilient, I'm going to have more confidence, and I'm going to feel more secure, and then maybe less stress because I'll be able to deal with whatever situations in front of me in a calmer manner or with more presence as opposed to reacting, right? And being on the defensive and reacting.
yeah, and that's what helps you grow as an individual. To be honest with you, and I think experiences that we go through is what also helps us sort of identify that self-awareness and identify what strategies work for you. And those are so valuable. And it's like, what lessons did I learn? What would I improve? What would I change? And especially again, going back to our field, it's not black and white. HR is not black and white. Everybody thinks it's black and white. It's not. It's gray, right? And every situation has a different solution. And so it's your experiences also that help you navigate and identify, what do I need to do for myself?
Right. And I think you're 100% right. Most people just sort of say, this is all HR and all HR is the same. And when you kind of drill down, there's different roles within HR, there's different personalities, there's different responsibilities, there's different management, and it's not all the same. And we need to acknowledge both sides, right? We need to understand, okay, that is the role of that person in HR, but they're a person too. And I'm an employee or management or leadership, but I'm also a human being. And we have to figure out ways to work together and move forward in the best possible manner without frustrating each other or getting burnt out or exhausted or
Yeah.
forgetting that there's human beings on both sides of it with emotions, feelings, and stress.
Yes, and and the field of HR has evolved and will continue to evolve. And at the core of it, it's about the individual, right? To your
Yes.
point, whether you're the HR practitioner or you are supporting someone else.
Yes, and we have to remember that we're all human beings and we all go through these different stages in our life. And I go back to that's why I love your recommendation of this idea of resilience and constantly evolving and allowing yourself to evolve, right? I think I would imagine, or I can talk for myself, like I'm not the same person that I am today that I was when I started my career,
Yeah,
right? There's
it's
been
true.
all these people and influences and changes and things, and my confidence levels or the way I speak or the way I communicate is very different, right?
Mhm.
And that's a constant evolution.
Yeah, never stop growing. You never stop evolving. And I think that's more than it is, give yourself that grace because, that's what life is about, is being able to evolve and grow and have that resilience. And, looking back and it's like, wow, I've come a long way. I've been able to, evolve from X to Y, Z, and here's where I'm now. And, what does the future hold? I mean, and I think that's what, you know, is exciting, especially in the HR field, is that, you know, we are the support of the organization and sort of that balance between, the organization and the people, and what we do impacts them in their personal and their professional life. And this is where, fascinates me about this discipline, is that we can have an impact on so many different ways. And we as individuals also need to have that ability to do that for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that is really the biggest takeaway from this conversation for me is all this great work that as HR professionals give out to employees and companies and leadership about professional development, learning and development skills, or benefits, or communication, or whatever it is. It's good to turn it around on ourselves, right? And to say, okay, I'm making all these recommendations, but am I taking advantage of them? Am I using the wellness benefits? Am I using the learning and development benefits? Am I growing within my profession? And I'm not just sending it outwards, but am I bringing it inwards too? And I think, again, that is sort of a classic trait of a caregiver or a person that's always giving out is forgetting that they need to take care of themselves too. And they need to pay attention to what they're doing for themselves as well. And also, I think that'll make them better professionals too, right?
Absolutely.
If you go through these experiences, you're going to better understand maybe an employee's experience because you're going through it too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's about building that rapport with anyone and being able to, have those open, candid conversations and truly understanding where that individual is coming from, and vice versa, right? And so, to your point, we need to sort of practice also what we also, you know, um, preach. It's like, like a parent.
Right.
I'm a mom, and it's like, the same thing. You have to. There's times where, I switch from my professional to my personal hat. There's times where I'm like, okay, mommy just needs a little break, you
Right.
know? And so,
Right.
eh, as a parent, you also need to do that. You think about it professionally, but also, personally.
Yeah, and again, I love that. I think I go back to what I we were talking about earlier in this conversation is a bit of that fear factor, I think, of like especially in the professional world to say I need a moment or
Yeah,
like I need to take a breath. Like I will continue this conversation. I will respond to your email, but right now I need a moment. And that to me is the biggest takeaway is don't be afraid to say that. It's okay. right? It doesn't show that you're weaker or less than or less professional or less capable. It just actually, in my opinion, and of course, please chime in, I feel like it makes you stronger and more resilient and a better professional.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're able to identify, have that self awareness, and you're able to identify what is triggering it and what you need to do to get past that point so that you're in a better place. And that is a difficult skill. And if you're able to learn it and adapt it, it is going to make you a better individual. And again, it goes back to your wellness, because it impacts you in so many different ways. And the older I'm getting, the older the more I'm feeling I feel it, right? And so it also has, I've reached a point where I'm like, okay, I need to do a better self, a better taking care of myself in a better way, because I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, and I don't want that for the rest of my life. So I need to actually action it now. And sometimes you need to go through these difficult phases to have that realization, right? Um, and then you move on. But again, it goes back to that self awareness. That is just critical.
Yeah, and I always like to say too, to HR is like if your employees see you participating in this or you doing it, whether it's going to like a wellness session, whether it's self-care, whether it's seeking, then they're more inclined to do it too, right? And
Yeah.
they're also more inclined to consider that everybody's a human being and how do we best collaborate and how do we best support each other. But if they see you sort of suppressing all those emotions and things that may be happening and pushing it aside and just looking outwards, they may not trust the situation, right? Or they may not believe. But if they feel like, oh, they're doing it too and they care about their mental health and their wellness and their well-being and they're leading by example, then I know I want to do it too.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point. You got to trust yourself to know when you need to take action, right? And it's those instincts, and nobody knows you better than you, right? And it does, it does help to sometimes sort of reflect and identify those trigger points. And it kind of goes back to the point I made about journaling. People say, sometimes journaling helps you because then you can go back and reflect and identify, hey, what's triggering. And so, that's another way that from a wellness, it's not a sort of health activity, but it does help. It's a different type of activity that does still correlate to your wellness, right? And wellness is not just about taking a yoga class or drinking green juices, it's not just those things. And that's where I think the more that we understand what wellness truly means to yourself and figuring out what helps you, um, then you'll put yourself in a better position to take care of yourself.
I love that. And so we have, you and I could talk forever because I love this topic, of course. But we have like a few more seconds. Is there anything you want to leave our listeners, participants with around mental health wellness? Um, just one last.
Two things. As an HR
Yes.
practitioner, I understand you. So if you need anything, feel free to reach out.
Oh my God,
From
I
a
love
from
that.
a mental wellness, take care of yourself. Have that self awareness to be able to know how you can help yourself. Whatever makes you happy, healthier, and in a better space.
Oh my gosh, beautiful, amazing, valuable advice. Thank you so much. Lisa, this was so much fun. And like I said, I could talk to you forever about this
Likewise.
topic. Um, and everyone listening to us or listening at another point, thank you for joining us. If you would like, Lisa, if people want to reach you, just tell us
Um,
quickly how, where they
yeah,
can
on
reach you
LinkedIn.
if they have
Happy to connect
questions.
on LinkedIn. Yep.
On LinkedIn. Perfect. Beautiful. So if you want to talk to Lisette or reach out to her, please do on LinkedIn. If you want information about United Latinas, please reach out. Please join our community. We are amazing and growing and strong and all here to support each other and create this beautiful United Latinas community. So, Lisa, thank you again so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Karina. Likewise.
Thanks.